to figure out the internal structure. Right? Scan में क्या करते हैं हम लोग? We figure out what's there inside. Similarly, the word scansion refers to the internal analysis of the structure of the poem. What is the exact structure of the poem that we are going to analyze? Okay, so scansion or scanning is the process of marking the beats in a poem. Beats, you understand? I just told you, in the world of music, in the world of poetry, we apply stress. Those stresses are also referred to as beats. Okay, we speak them louder compared to the other syllables. Okay, so what is scansion? It is a process. It is a process of analysis. And what do we do in this particular process of analysis? We try to figure out the internal structure of the poem. ठीक है? Internal structure मतलब क्या है? Two things. What are the syllables? And secondly, which syllable is getting the beat? That is, which syllable is getting the stress and which syllable is not getting the stress. And your internal structure is ready. Half of your internal structure is ready. Okay? Okay. Now, see, I told you two kinds of syllables we will have. Those syllables which will get the stress, those are called stressed syllables. And the other syllables which will not get the stress, they are known as unstressed syllables. Okay? So, stressed syllables and unstressed syllables in poetry are marked by a special means. Okay, now I'll just take you directly to this particular picture. Uh, can you see there are three poetic lines given at the end of the screen? You see there are three poetic lines given at the end of the screen. A small poem is given. I'll read out the poem for you. Sun lights him, November where he grieves, in dead red leaves, and will not let him shun the day, though bow with bow, be overrun. Can now say the word this is marked with a small curve. The word sun is marked with a slanting line. These are the markings for the unstressed syllables and the stressed syllables. So, when you identify the stressed syllables, you will have to mark them out with a slash on top of the syllable. Okay, so the stressed syllables are marked with a straight slashes, whereas the unstressed syllables, the syllables that do not carry the stress, they are marked by a small curve that also on top of the syllable. Okay, now this is the presentation of how you are going to mark out and identify which syllable is stressed, which syllable is unstressed. So there are two markings I give you. One, that is the curve line, is there to mark the unstressed syllables, and the slanting line is there to mark the stressed syllables. Fine? Are you with me? Did you get the point? How are you going to mark out the two different kinds of syllables? I can't see the this. I'll have to minimize my PPT. Can you respond? Can you unmute yourself and respond saying yes or no? Is the markings clear? What are the symbols?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well and good. Then let's proceed. So, point number one that I discussed with you was what? Point number one was you have to find out the number of syllables. Point number two, I said, after you figure out the number of syllables, now your job is to figure out which syllable is getting stressed, which syllable is not getting stressed. And accordingly, now you mark out the syllables. Okay? Now, point number three is supposing in one line, listen carefully. In one line, you have figured out ki chalo baba there are 10 syllables, and out of these 10 syllables you have seen that there are 5 syllables that are getting the stress and 5 syllables are not getting the stress. Okay, simple. 5 plus 5 is 10. That means you have 5 syllables with stress, 5 syllables without stress. Supposing you have this kind of a structure where the first syllable gets the stress, the second syllable do not get the stress, the third syllable gets the stress, fourth syllable do not get the stress. Okay, so what you see is alternatively one syllable is getting stressed and the other syllable is not getting the stress. Now, supposing you have to describe to a student or maybe to your junior the structure of this particular line, then what will be your description? How will you describe? You will have to describe syllable by syllable. So, like I just read out, you will say in line number one of this poem, the first syllable is getting the stress, the second syllable is not getting the stress, comma, third syllable is getting the stress, fourth syllable is not getting the stress, etc., etc., etc. But you see, if if you have to describe in this format, syllable by syllable, then it's going to take you maybe 1,000 pages. If it is a long poem, then what will you do? To describe the structure of one particular poem, you will take 1,000 pages because there will be so many syllables and you are going to describe it syllable by syllable. Now, in order to reduce our job in the world of poetry, what we have is we have certain more concepts. If we use those particular concepts, then our job as a scholar, our job as a person of literature is reduced a lot. One of those concepts is the concept of foot. You know, all of us have foot, whether we are human beings or animals, more or less we have foot. And most of us, since we have two legs, we have feet. So, foot means one, and the plural of foot is feet. Now, this is the concept that we have in the world of poetry to analyze and reduce our job of describing the structure of a line. Now, see, what is the concept of a foot? Foot is a repeated sequence of rhythm comprising of two or more stressed and unstressed syllables. Now, before I officially tell you the definition, what I just read out, in the simplest terminology, I'm explaining you the definition of foot, the concept of foot. Foot kya hai? Foot is a unit of unit. Unit, do you understand? We have units of measurements now, like centimeter, millimeter, kiloliters, inches. We have these units. What do we do with these units? We measure. Okay. Similarly, the concept of foot is also based on the concept of measurement. Foot means it is a unit. It is a unit means it consists of a group of syllables. Simply saying that. What does a foot consist of? Foot means a group of syllables. Previous to this, we have said syllable. The concept of syllable I taught you in class. We said what is a syllable? Syllable is a unit of sound, right? And syllable consists of what? Syllable consists of a group of sounds. Now, syllables, though we understood, it is a group consisting of sounds. Now we have the concept of foot. Foot is a unit which is higher than the unit of syllables. Now, what is foot? In one foot, we have either two syllables or more than two syllables. Okay. So, as a layman, if I ask you what is a foot, you can simply say and keep in your mind a foot is a unit and it consists of a group of syllables. In one foot, we can have two syllables also. In one foot, we can have more than two syllables also. Okay? So, what is a foot? Foot is a measurement. Measurement, kiska measurement? Measurement of a poetic line. Okay, it's not the measurement of a cloth, but it's a measurement of a poetic line. Now, what do we have in a foot? Within one foot, we have some syllables, and that is why a group of syllables taken together is known as a foot. Understood? Now, let's come to this definition that is there on the screen. A poetic foot is a repeated sequence of rhythm. Repeated sequence. Sequence मतलब आपको पता है? A series that goes one after the other. Okay. Repeated matlab the same thing that you get first is again what you find in the second one is again what you find in the third one. So that is if you get the same thing in the second also, in the third also, then we say it is repeated. So the same sequence, the same process, the same structure that you get in the first segment is repeated in the second, is also repeated in the third. Okay, so repeated sequence of rhythm. You understand the meaning of the word rhythm? Rhythm I just explained. Rhythm is what? Rhythm is the beat. And what do we mean by the word beat? We mean stressed and unstressed syllables. So, syllable number 1 gets the stress, syllable number 2 do not get the stress, is unstressed. Again, syllable 3 gets the stress, syllable 4 unstressed. Okay, so can you say that syllable number 1 and syllable number 2 has a pattern? What is the pattern? Stressed, unstressed. The same pattern, that is the first syllable is stressed, the second syllable is unstressed, the same pattern we are finding it in the next segment also. I said syllable 3 is also stressed, syllable 4 is unstressed. So similar to the first group of syllables, we have the second group of syllables where syllable number 1 is stressed, syllable 2 is unstressed. The same pattern is followed in the second group also. The same pattern is followed in the third group also. So what happens? We have one pattern. What is the pattern? We have two syllables in one group And out of these two syllables in one group, the first syllable is stressed, the second syllable is not stressed. The same pattern is repeated in all the groups in the line. Then what are we getting? We are getting a repetition of the same pattern. And the repetition of the same pattern helps us to develop the rhythm of that particular line. Okay, so what is a poetic foot? Let's read out again. A poetic foot is a repeated sequence of rhythm that comprises of two or more stressed and unstressed syllables. How did we develop the pattern, students? We developed the pattern because we have a combination. In one group of syllables, what did we have? I said, let's say there are two syllables in one group. So, out of the two syllables, the first syllable is getting the stress, the second syllable is not stressed. The same pattern of stressed, unstressed is being repeated in every group of pattern in the same line. Okay, so this particular pattern develops the beat, develops the rhythm of that particular poetic line. Okay, so this helps us to analyze how many units, how many units of feet can we segment out in one given poetic line. Okay, let's read out the definition once again. What's a poetic line? A poetic line is a repeated sequence of rhythm comprising of two or more stressed and unstressed syllables. Let's come back to this particular poem once again. Now, see, the thing that I just said is what is given here. What did I say about the definition of a foot? I said a foot is what? A foot is the way stressed and unstressed syllables here are marked out. The first word, let's not say word, let's say syllable. This, the first syllable is unstressed, the second syllable is stressed, the third syllable is unstressed, the fourth syllable is stressed. ठीक है? Fifth syllable में क्या हो रहा है? Fifth syllable no is unstressed. The sixth syllable is vem, that is stressed. Again unstressed bar, stressed where. Again the ninth syllable is he, which is unstressed, and the 10th syllable is grieves, which is stressed. Okay, so instead of describing this particular line syllable by syllable, we have now a concept. What is that concept? We can describe the line in terms of foot. So if we say that, there is a pattern of stress and unstressed syllables in this line, then we can figure out the pattern. So how will we figure out the pattern? We will look at the sequence, how many stressed syllables are coming after how many unstressed syllables. If you look at this particular line, you can easily identify that after every unstressed syllable, we have a stressed syllable. So in that way, if you segment out this line and you say ki chalo Let me divide this particular line into five different segments. And in each segment, you follow more or less the same sequence, the same order, the same stress pattern. What is the same stress pattern you are following here? In the first sequence, also, in the first foot, what is the first segment? What is the first foot here? This sun. Foot you understood. Foot means a group of syllables. We have a group of syllables. There are two syllables here. And in this group, we have a combination. We have an unstressed syllable and we have a stressed syllable. Combination भी है हमारे पास, right? In the second segment also, we see it is the same pattern. We have two syllables and we have the same combination, the same sequence. First is unstressed, second is stressed. In this way, if you divide the 10 syllables into 5 segments, then our work becomes a little easier, right? A description of this line will become a little easier. So instead of saying it one syllable after another syllable, we can simply say it together. What we can say? There are 5 segments. 5 segments means there are 5 groups. If you use the phonetic, the prosodic term, we will say there are 5 feet. 5 segments hai na? Each segment can be considered to be 1 foot. Foot, I said, is a unit. A unit which consists of at least 2 syllables. In each of the 5 segments, we have 2 syllables each. So we can say there are 5 feet. Plural hai. So we will say 5 feet. So in each of the 5 feet, we have the same pattern of stress and unstressed syllable. What is the same pattern? In each of the 5 feet, the first syllable is unstressed, the second syllable is stressed. Okay, so our job is reduced, isn't it? Our job describing syllable by syllable used. So instead of spending 1,000 pages, I can simply say it in one line. How can I describe this particular line? I can simply say there are 10 syllables and there are 5 feet. In the 5 feet,